Hello, it's Ruby, and in today's video I am going to share with you how I make time for creative writing while I'm at university. I'm currently studying my Masters in English Literature. I find the course is quite heavy in terms of workload. Like, it's very easy to just spend a whole day doing course-related things. The danger with studying is that you can never quite be finished. There is always something else to read or learn, and always something that you could perfect in an essay or you could go a bit further with. And because I really love my studies, I can find myself wanting to just spend all of my time doing it. However, writing is also really important to me. Writing is my favourite thing to do. Categorically, number one favourite thing to do is just to sit there and do creative writing. Like in Michaelmas term, I didn't make time for writing. I barely did any writing. I did a bit of journaling. I wrote a few poems, enough to create this little zine. I did a very, very limited print run of these on my website. And so going into 2024, I made a resolution. One of my resolutions was to make time to write every day. It's something I really hope to do professionally as well in the future. And so I said to myself, you have to write every day. No questions asked, you have to spend at least an hour every day just writing. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm going to talk about kind of what that looks like at university. So sharing my routine for writing. There'll be a mini day in the life vlog as part of that routine as well, so I can fit it into a wider structure. And also I just want to have kind of a sit down chat about aspects of writing, getting away from perfectionism within writing and writing for the process of writing as opposed to the final result, which I think is really, really important and something that I've been reflecting on a lot recently. But first thing, I thought that I would show you my writing routine, and I'm going to do it within a little daily vlog, so you'll see the whole of my day as well, but we'll cut to that now.
I would say that this is a pretty typical day in my life, and I did want to situate it within a day. So I went down into the college quad to read some of my book. First thing, I'm reading Ophelia Swam at the moment, which is so excellent. It's based on the 17th century botanist Lady Grace Mildmay and these medicinal books that she kept. In the book, Lady Grace meets and cares for Ophelia from Hamlet, so it's working on the supposition that Ophelia didn't actually die in the pond. College is also looking beautiful at the moment. All of the flowers are out, look at the roses and the wisteria. But I headed to go and get a coffee next, and I like to do writing in coffee shops. There's something about a coffee shop that just makes it very conducive for writing, and so this is where my writing routine begins. So I always do writing first thing in the morning.
I like to use the mornings to write because that way I know that I definitely have done it. And that means that I can totally concentrate on my studies in the afternoon, which I really like because often things will come up as you're studying and you'll be like, oh, I don't really have the time now to write, and I never want my thoughts to go in that direction. So that's why I do it in the morning. Also, I'm most creative in the morning. I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure you're meant to be most creative when you're really tired.
So first of all, I will look at my writing to-do list. At the beginning of the week, I write a semi-long list, maybe 10 things that I want to do which are writing related. So that might be storyboarding or character planning, writing particular scenes, doing specific pieces of research. And I like having this because it prevents decision fatigue and it directs my writing session. Then the first bit of actual writing I will do is in my notebook, and I will just free write for about 10 minutes. This will be ideas for plot. It might be free prose, reflections, and I like this because it gets me back into the world of the book. I'm actually working on 2 books at the moment. One is a nonsense middle grade book and one is a YA book, and they're quite different in tone, so I do find that this is helpful. Then usually I will spend the rest of the time just typing, getting words on the page, or editing what I've already got. However, it really depends on the tasks that I've set for myself. As I say, it's all dependent on that to-do list. And then, of course, the last thing I will do in this session is just make a note of where I got to, so I can look at that tomorrow and possibly jot down what I want to do tomorrow. The key thing here really is consistency, which links to something which Neil Gaiman says. One person I have taken quite considerable inspiration from in constructing this routine is Neil Gaiman. So Neil Gaiman did this wonderful interview, I'll leave the article link down below, where he was talking about his daily writing routine and how he makes him sit down, I think it's for 3 hours every day, and he has to sit at his desk for that time, and he can either write or he can do nothing. But there are no distractions, there's nothing else he can do, so he either writes or he just sits there. It really stresses the importance of consistency for Neil Gaiman. It's making it a non-negotiable, and so I've kind of tried to make writing a non-negotiable in the same way, but where it's not necessarily about output, it's just about spending like that chunk of time doing writing. There's also this quote from Ray Bradbury which I want to read you. He says, "Just write every day of your life, read intensely, then see what happens. Most of my friends who are put on that diet have very pleasant careers." So it's still very early in the day and I've already done my writing for the day. Like, it is done, I've committed the time to it, and then I just jumped straight back into studying. So like even in the coffee shop I stayed for an extra 15 minutes to do some work on my dissertation before heading over to the Red camera. As you can see, I've got this printed document I'm going through. This is my current draft of my dissertation, which is still needing a lot of work. It's due next month. I've still got 4 weeks to work on it, but it is a work in progress. I also find it so helpful to read through a printed version of an essay to see what makes sense and what doesn't. And then I headed back to my room to do some more work because I needed my computer for my next task. And you'll see that when I get back to my room, I'm going to share some reflections about writing with you.
So now I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about writing and perfectionism. Something I hear so much when like you ask somebody, do you write, or like do you do creative writing? People say, oh yes I do, but I'm not very good. And I say this too. I always say this, I'm like, oh, I really enjoy doing it. I'm not very good, but I really enjoy doing it. This equation of the quality of the writing to the process of like enjoying the writing just feels like quite disjointed. Like obviously quality of writing is a thing, and there are people who are better at the act of writing or more practiced in the art of writing, but I find that quite uncomfortable. I think it points to a wider issue of us just really putting the things down that we like doing and turning it into something meritocratic, and like this idea that you can only do something if you're good at it, which is obviously a massive feeding point for perfectionism. Perfectionism is something I've spoken about quite a bit on my channel in the past, and which I know a lot of people who watch my videos resonate with or have experienced this, quite detrimental sort of perfectionism that can prevent you from doing things that you really enjoy or you really value just because you're scared that you're not going to do it perfectly. If you do struggle with that, actually, one thing that I have done, and this is the reason that I wanted to do this video in partnership with Skillshare actually.
Because I did the Skillshare class, which is very closely related. If you didn't know, Skillshare is the world's largest online learning community, and you can learn so many skills from so many tutors. Marketable skills like digital design or video editing. But one that I recently did and found really helpful was creative confidence, learn to overcome critical voice.
And I was interested to kind of look at this because imposter syndrome is something I've increasingly struggled with. Like, I found myself being much more self-critical recently as well. When I saw this course on Skillshare, like Skillshare's got so many courses, but when I saw this one on Skillshare, I really wanted to do it. And I'm really glad that I did. So if you do struggle with perfectionism around creativity and around like creative pursuits, interests that you might have, that is one that I would really recommend. I also, just like as a side note, we often think of skills as being tangible, like the act of writing, marketable physical skills that you can put down on a CV, but soft skills are so important, and like skills relating to your mental health, like I don't even know if skills is the right word, soft skills and mindset are just as, if not more important. And I love that Skillshare here is opening up skill beyond just like marketable physical skills, because you can learn animation, coding, editing, cooking on Skillshare, but this one I benefited so much from. I feel like I learned much more from this, the creative confidence one. If you do want to try Skillshare, if you want to specifically try this course, then you can try it for free if you use my link. The first 500 people to click on the link in the description box can get the first month for free. So if like perfectionism around creative pursuit is something that you've struggled with, then consider clicking on the link and like trying out this particular course. So yeah, thank you so much Skillshare, slight detour. I think a large part of writing or any kind of creativity is giving yourself permission to just sit down and do it without any expectations, without an anticipatory audience, which is actually really hard to do because we've fallen into this culture where like everything can be monetized, and obviously the deep irony is the fact that I'm talking about writing and talking about the monetization of hobbies and the almost commodification of hobbies, when in a sense that's exactly what I do through sharing my hobbies on social media. But I think in itself that is illustrative of the kind of culture that we're within, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's great that the democratization of media and the freedom to post on social media means that artists and creatives can share content and work with people, like that they have an audience. I think that's a wonderful thing. Of course that's a wonderful thing, but it can take away from, I think, this is just in my experience, allowing yourself to sit down and just write something without any audience at all, like not expecting anyone to ever read what you're doing, or like, you know, editing a photo or a video or something, but not with the expectation of having an audience other than yourself, like allowing yourself to create just for the simple process of creating. And it's something I tried out, and like I don't do this often, but it's something I tried out for the first time maybe a year and a half ago. This author recommended burning poetry, like write a poem and then just burn it. So you're writing with the expectation that no one, not even yourself, is ever going to read that again. Like there is no audience. And so the process of writing becomes simply that, just like a process of writing. And I tried this and I burnt a poem, and it was very liberating. I'm not saying that I'm over this, but like it really challenged a perspective I didn't even realise I had of like creating for an audience, which is almost inevitable because of YouTube and the fact that I like create content online and have done it for such a long time. All that to preface that there's so much value in just allowing yourself to create without expectation, and that is something I've habitually tried to incorporate into my everyday in terms of writing, which is kind of my favourite art form. There is something I do whenever I go to the Natural History Museum. Well, I say whenever, like I try to do it whenever, but I don't do it every time because I don't want to make it a rule. I just want it to be fun. But I love writing nonsense. I love writing nonsense poetry. I find it really fun. I really enjoy it, but I don't necessarily want to share it. I just like the process of writing it. I think like the process of writing nonsense is very liberating because you're acknowledging structures of writing, but you're also rebelling against it. And like not using those structures in a logical way, which is actually, Pendlebury says, the big difference between nonsense and gibberish. Like gibberish doesn't follow the structures, but nonsense does. So I just let myself sit there and write a complete piece of nonsense when I go to the Natural History Museum.
Now back into the rest of the day, I did some more work. This was actually related to my book though. Usually I only spend the morning doing writing, but I needed to send a synopsis of my middle grade book over, so I was finishing up that. And then I went to meet my friend Lucy for coffee. We went to the Independent Cafe, which is so good. Honestly, their matcha and their almond milk iced lattes are really good.
Every reason to. I'm now going to go and look at a very special book in the library.
Our lovely librarian at Jesus had found this 17th century children's book that he thought I would like, so I went to our Fellows Library to look at that for about 40 minutes, and that was really brilliant. And then I went straight to Christchurch for a walk. I'm here at Christchurch College, where Lewis Carroll or Charles Dodgson was a fellow, and he is just another example of an author who was incredibly consistent with his writing and made sure to write every day, even if it wasn't always fiction or what we would consider proper literature. Lewis Carroll actually says that he wrote an average of 7 letters a day. That is a lot of letters, and often these letters to children would feature stories and games and riddles, much like his published works. But it shows his consistency with writing, and also the fact that it doesn't have to be a perfect form of writing.
So then the other thing which is really a part of my daily routine is walking and making time for walking and like just reflective space, which is important for studying but also for like any kind of large creative written project. I've been doing a lot of world building recently for one of my projects and one of my books, and I find it's just great to go on a walk and let yourself think about it.
I think one of the other key things is letting yourself go outside and just think and reflect and not have any distractions. Just let your mind wander. This is especially useful for world building. I remember Philip Pullman, I went to see him speak in Michaelmas Term, and he was talking about this walk that he took around a reservoir, and he just kept on walking round and round as he was trying to understand and kind of like come up with how a sentient being with wheels would have evolved and how they would interact with the world. I can't remember the name of the character, but I'll put it on the screen. I think he just hit the nail on the head there. Like, you just need to give yourself space and time to think for that creativity to come out. And so I think there's so much value in getting outside, like I am right now, and just letting yourself think. I know I don't give myself enough time for this, and I really want to spend more time actively making time for boredom. It's kind of one of my big resolutions going forward. I don't know if I'll stick to it. I actually want to film a whole video about this because there is such a massive and historic link between writing and walking. But so many of the great writers walked a lot. Look at the Romantic poets, look at Wordsworth. Wordsworth, of course, wrote many poems about his time walking as well, and I wanted to read you one of those poems now. Sweet was the walk along the narrow lane. At noon the bank and hedgerows all the way, shagged with wild pale green tufts of fragrant hay, caught by the hawthorns from the loaded wain, which age with many a slow stoop strove to gain, and childhood, seeming still most busy, took his little rake with cunning sidelong look, sauntering to pluck the strawberries wild. I've gone back to my room, but it's really quite warm, so I'm going to go and find somewhere else to study instead. So then in the evening, I just did some more work for my dissertation and sent something over to my supervisor, which was so good to have done. But yes, that's the last thing I filmed today.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful. I hope that it was useful in some capacity. If you are someone who is trying to make time for writing alongside studies or alongside work, if writing is something you care about, then making the time for it is so important. Like with anything that you really, really care about, carving out that time, like trying to carve out a little space, even if it's 10 minutes, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's not an hour, I think it's so important mentally, if nothing else, because it's telling yourself that it's something important to you. And like mindset wise, I think that's like almost as important as actually sitting down and doing the work. So yeah, with that said, thank you again, and I hope that you have more than just a productive week.